get this question all the time. Which business should I start? And I think the answer is you shouldn't start a business. Through the process of dropping out of college, $15,000 in debt, working my way up to making $20,000, $30,000 per month. I've learned many lessons, and I think one of the most important ones was you shouldn't start a business if you don't have skill sets. I'm that kid that was always on YouTube trying to figure out what's the next side hustle, what am I gonna do next, how am I gonna make money. I just never wanted to be in that 9-to-5 world. Such a scam.
The matrix is strong.
You go to school, get in a ton of debt. I mean, honestly, it's just a system that they put you in so you can work for them forever. What's the quickest way out? How do I get back my time? How do I get my freedom? In order to do that, I knew I had to make a lot of sacrifice, had to work really hard.
Who's gonna carry the boats?
And figure out how to break free. So ultimately it was start a business. Like, what is a business? A business is you being able to take your skill sets, provide value to the marketplace, a service, a product. And in order to do that, I mean, fundamentally, you need to know a handful of things. In order to start this business, who do I have to become? Who do I need to be? What skill sets do I need to have? The first business I ever started was a car detailing business. I went around to all my neighbors, knock on their doors, give them a pitch, and then ultimately I'd start washing their cars. And me and my friend in high school scaled this business up. I was taking home probably like $1,000 a weekend. It was super cool at the time. What I didn't like about that business is I was working in the Texas heat 10, 12 hours a day. So I saved up all that money and I got into e-commerce. The first month I did 4,000. The second month I did 18,000. The third, I think I did 35,000. I was doing high revenue, but not a lot saved in my pocket. I think I kept 6,000, 7,000, but then the whole business crashed. It was the summer after my senior year of high school, and I was trying to figure out how do I escape college, and I watched The Social Network. I'm sure maybe you've been there before. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna create an app idea. I'm gonna be the next Zuckerberg. So that's exactly what I did. It's so dumb now that I think about it. I started building this app. It was called Book Me. It was the connection app. I went and hired a UX designer. I was, talking to different teams like in India to start developing it. I was putting all the pieces together, and then I came up with this make-believe budget of I need $150,000 to start. And so I was like, okay, how do I get $150,000? I texted everyone that I knew had nice cars, and I was just trying to find someone to pitch the app idea to. One of the responses that I got fundamentally changed my life forever. So I still remember I was going to my friend's house. He was about to leave for college. My school just got canceled. I was going to Pepperdine out in California because it was 2020. What happened then? It got canceled, pandemic, blah, blah, blah. I was getting ready for online school. All my friends were leaving. As I was driving to my friend's house, I got a text. Hey, come over. I got 45 minutes. Let's see what you got. So I whip a U-turn, I drive over there, and I'm sweating. And I live in Texas, so granted it's 100 degrees, but I'm sweating more than normal. I'm super nervous. The guy I was pitching it to is pretty intimidating. I walk in there with my laptop, I sit down, pull up my slide deck. I feel like I'm pitching to a brick wall, I'm being stared at. I just start going through the slide deck. It was probably like a 2-minute pitch. It felt like 5 years. I'm just looking around trying to figure out, does he like the idea? Does he not like the idea? And when I got finished, I sat there and I didn't know how to ask for money. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just kind of looked at him and said, so what do you think? And he looks at me, and I still remember, and he goes, Jacob, I have a lot of money, but I wouldn't give you any money for this. And I was just like, damn. And I'm paraphrasing that, something along those lines. I didn't know what to say. I just kind of froze. I just got my dreams crushed. Everything fell down. This was gonna be the way I escaped the matrix, the way I escaped school, and I was gonna kind of, break free, become a billionaire, all that sort of thing. And obviously that's not what happened. I was kind of sitting there, I just didn't know what to say. And then he looked at me and he goes, why do you think that you can do this? I had a belief in myself, but I didn't really have any logic behind it. I was like, Zuckerberg did it, I can do it too. And he goes, let me clarify the question. Do you know how to code? I'm like, no, I don't know how to code, but I've been talking to these developers. He's like, okay. Do you know how to sell? I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, you didn't sell me. Okay. Fundamentally, what skill sets do you have to be able to get this business started? I washed cars, had some marketing skills with the e-commerce stuff, but I was really a master of nothing. That's kind of when the epiphany happened. It's like, I don't have any skill sets to build a business. So I pretty much just gave up on the app idea. I was just like, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna get a job. I really just didn't know what to do from there. And then I got a text a couple of days later, and he's like, where do you lift? And I was just like, the local gym, HCI. And he goes, why don't you start lifting with me? And I started lifting with him a couple times a week. And so as I was lifting with him, I was like, I'm gonna start a real estate business. I took all the savings I had from the car washing business, all the cash I had. I was cold calling, trying to analyze different properties, and I paid for a coaching program program, $12,000. I couldn't afford it up front, and I just did a payment plan. As I began to start that business, I quickly realized that I still had no skill sets. So a couple months go by, I'm losing $3,000 to $4,000 per month. This was a pretty low point for me. I hated school, I was doing the wholesaling, and so I'm sitting in the same place I was. I kept building businesses and then they just kept failing. I was going in debt. I just really didn't know where I was gonna go from here. Some of the days I'd be sitting in bed half the day, just honestly pretty depressed. And then one day I walked into Alex's house, we were talking, and then I get this phone call, and it was a sales call. So I jump on it, I get in the corner, I hunch over. I was honestly embarrassed to take the call in front of Alex and Layla. After the call, it's probably a 5-10 minute call. I walk over and he just said, "You suck at sales." And then boom, another dagger. Laid down the tough love, which I appreciate a ton. I was just like, well, how do I get better at sales? And he just goes, well, you got to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do it? And he goes, let me make a couple calls. Let me see if I can get your foot in the door at Gym Launch, his company. Bottom level, cold calling position. You're going to have to go through the interview process. You're going to have to get approved for the team. And if you do get the job, it's grow or die. They will fire you if you do not perform. I go through the interview process. I end up getting the job. Cold calling, I'm cold calling, I'm cold calling. Side lesson here, volume negates luck. Like if you start something new and you just do a ton of it, the more you do, the better you'll get in a shorter amount of time. And at first you're gonna suck. I started sales, I dropped out of college, I put my back against the wall, I ended up shutting down the other business, and I said, I'm going to make this work. I just sacrificed everything in my life, everything to this one specific skill set. About 6 months later, I got my first check, $375. 6 to 8 months later, I was taking home $20,000 a month. And this was crazy. Less than a year later, I was taking home more money than most of my friends' parents just because I learned this one skill set. It's not about what business you should start. It's about what skill set should you learn. Media, leadership, if I can start stacking those skill sets while still getting paid by the first skill set I stacked, and I've learned a skill set that's gonna serve me for the rest of my life. Maybe my perspective will change, but hey, the more skill sets you stack, it's not gonna make you poor.